The light faded slowly. Mira drifted back to the floor, her body trembling with exhaustion. The glow in her eyes dimmed but did not disappear completely. She could still feel the connection to the device, to the signal, to something vast and ancient that she did not fully understand. Her friends rushed to her side. Zara caught her before she fell. Danny checked her pulse and her breathing. Keelik scanned her with a medical device she had taken from an emergency kit. Torvik stood guard at the door, his stone body battered but still standing. The hollow units around them remained frozen, their blue eyes dark and lifeless. Myra tried to speak, but her throat was dry. She managed to whisper that she was okay. She was not sure if that was true. She felt different. Something inside her had changed when the device activated. She was still human, but she was also something more now. Something the precursors had planned for 1 billion years ago. "Commander," Solara's voice came through the communication system. She reported that all hollow units on the station had stopped functioning. The enemy fleet was drifting without power. Rescue teams were moving through the corridors, helping wounded students and securing the damaged sections. The battle was over. They had won, but Myra knew it was not that simple. The hollow fleet had stopped because she had commanded them to stop. She had not destroyed them. She had not defeated them. She had simply paused them. The signal she broadcast was temporary. When it faded, they would wake up again. And next time, there would be more of them. Director Noma arrived at the communication array an hour later. His ancient eyes studied Mira with a mixture of wonder and sorrow. He told her that she had exceeded every expectation. He told her that she had proven what the precursors had always believed about humanity. But he also told her that this was only the beginning. The Hollow were not a single fleet. They were a civilization of machines that stretched across the darkness between galaxies. They had been dormant for 1 billion years, waiting for the precursor barriers to weaken. This attack was a scouting mission. When they did not return, others would come to investigate. The war had begun. Myra asked what she was supposed to do. She was one person. She could not stop an entire machine civilization by herself. The device had given her power, but power alone was not enough. Director Noma smiled for the first time since she had met him. He said that she was not supposed to stop them by herself. The precursors had not designed humans to be saviors. They had designed humans to be bridges. The signal she broadcast had done more than stop the Hollow. It had sent a message to every communication relay in the galaxy. Every species with access to interstellar communication had received it. They had seen what she did. They had seen a human stand against the darkness and win. The days that followed were chaos. Ships arrived at Nexus Academy from every corner of the galaxy. Diplomats and generals and scientists came to see the girl who had stopped the Hollow. News broadcasts showed the footage from the communication array. They showed a young human woman glowing with ancient power, commanding machines with a word. They showed her friends fighting beside her. They showed species that had never worked together standing united against a common enemy. Admiral Koss arrived with a fleet of Valkyrie warships. The Valkyrie were an aquatic species known for their military strength and their distrust of younger races. Koss had spoken against human inclusion in galactic affairs for decades. Now he stood before Myra and offered a formal apology. He pledged his fleet to the defense of humanity. He pledged his species to the war against the Hollow. Other species followed. The Grand sent warriors. The Getheri sent scientists. The Arthani sent analysts. Even species that had never joined the Galactic Union sent representatives. The threat was too great for old prejudices. The evidence was too clear to ignore. Humanity was not the weak, primitive species that everyone had assumed. Humanity was the key to survival. Torvik approached Mira during a quiet moment between meetings. His stone face was difficult to read, but his voice was soft. He apologized for how he had treated her when she first arrived. He said that he had been taught to judge species by their physical abilities. He had been taught that strength meant power and power meant worth. He had been wrong. Myra told him that she understood. She said that humans judged each other the same way sometimes. They looked at surface qualities and made assumptions. They forgot that real strength came from the ability to adapt, to learn, to change. She said that she was still learning that lesson herself. Torvik asked to train with human soldiers when the war began. He wanted to learn how they thought. He wanted to understand how a species with no natural weapons had become the most dangerous thing the Hollow had ever encountered. Myra said she would arrange it. Zara found Myra on the observation deck that evening. The stars stretched endlessly before them. Somewhere out there, the Hollow were preparing their response. Somewhere out there, the real war was waiting to begin. Zara said that she had been wrong about Myra too. She had been suspicious and cold when Myra first arrived. She had assumed the worst. She had forgotten that being human meant giving people a chance. Myra said that she had been keeping secrets. She said that Zara had every right to be suspicious. Zara shrugged and said that secrets did not matter anymore. What mattered was what they did next. What mattered was that humans faced the future together. Danny joined them on the observation deck. He brought food from the cafeteria that was almost edible. The three humans sat together and watched the stars and talked about nothing important. They talked about home and family and the small things that made life worth living. They did not talk about war or destiny or the burden that Myra carried. There would be time for that later. Myra thought about everything that had happened since she found the device on that dead moon. She thought about the visions and the power and the responsibility that had been placed on her shoulders. She had not asked for any of it. She had not wanted to be special. But she understood now why the precursors had chosen humanity. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced. But humans had something that no other species possessed. They had the ability to connect. They could look at creatures completely different from themselves and find common ground. They could turn enemies into allies and strangers into friends. They could build bridges where others saw only walls. That was what the precursors had designed them for. Not to defeat the Hollow alone, but to unite the galaxy against them. Not to be warriors, but to be leaders. Not to destroy, but to bring together. Myra looked at her friends and felt hope for the first time since this all began. The Hollow were coming. The war would be long and terrible, and many would die before it was over. But the galaxy would not face it alone. Humans would stand at the center, connecting every species, building every alliance, proving that the smallest and weakest could become the strongest. When they worked together, she touched the device in her pocket and felt it pulse with warmth. The precursors were gone, but their legacy lived on. In the technology they left behind. In the species they created. In the girl who had become something more than human. The stars burned bright against the darkness. Somewhere out there, the future was waiting. Myra Cole intended to meet it head-on. The Academy shook as the first wave of attacks struck the outer shields. Students screamed and ran through the corridors while emergency protocols activated throughout the station. Blast doors sealed. Evacuation routes lit up on every wall. Instructors shouted orders that nobody could hear over the alarms. Myra ran with Zara and Velith toward the central command center. The device in her hand pulsed with each impact against the shields. She could feel the hollow ships outside like pressure against her skull. They were not just machines. They were something worse. They were hunger given form. They were emptiness that wanted to fill itself with everything that lived. Commander, Solara was already at the command center when they arrived. Her serpentine body coiled around the central console as she coordinated the defense. The Academy had weapons, but they were designed for pirates and small raiding parties. The Hollow fleet numbered 47 ships. Each one was larger than the entire station. Director Noma stood at the window, watching the battle unfold. His ancient face showed no fear. He turned when Myra entered and looked at her with eyes that seemed to see through time itself. He said that he had waited a very long time for this day. He said that he had hoped it would not come during his lifetime. But hope was a luxury that the universe rarely afforded. The shields began to fail. Hollow boarding craft launched from the enemy fleet and attached themselves to the station's hull. The sounds of cutting and drilling echoed through the walls. They were coming inside. Danny arrived at the command center with a group of students who had refused to evacuate. Keelix was among them. So was Torvik. The massive Gron looked at Mira without hostility for the first time. He said that he had seen the enemy ships. He said that he had never seen anything like them. He asked what they were. Mira told him. She told all of them. The Hollow were machine intelligences from beyond the galaxy. They had nearly destroyed everything a billion years ago. The precursors had stopped them, but the barriers were breaking down. The Hollow had tracked the device to this location. They wanted the technology that could defeat them. They wanted to destroy it before anyone could use it. Torvik asked what the device did. Mira admitted that she did not know exactly. The visions had shown her that humanity was designed to be a weapon against the Hollow. The device was supposed to help her understand how, but she had not figured it out yet. Commander Solara reported that Hollow units had breached the station in 7 locations. They were spreading through the corridors, cutting down anyone they encountered. The evacuation was stalled. 3,000 students were still trapped in the residential sections. Myra made a decision. She told Solara that she needed to reach the main communication array at the top of the station. The device could broadcast a signal through the array. She did not know what the signal would do, but she knew it was the only option. The visions had shown her the array. They had shown her standing there with the device in her hands. They had not shown her what happened next. Solara said it was impossible. The communication array was on the far side of the station. Hollow forces were between them and their destination. The corridors were not safe. Danny stepped forward. He said that he knew the maintenance tunnels. He had explored them during his first year when he was bored and lonely. They ran parallel to the main corridors. They were small and cramped, and nobody used them. The Hollow might not know they existed. Keelix offered her skills. The Arthani could see patterns that others missed. She could predict enemy movement based on the sounds they made and the vibrations they caused. She could guide them around patrols. Torvik said that if they encountered enemies, they would need someone who could fight. His stone skin could resist energy weapons. His strength could break through barriers. He looked at Myra and said that he had been wrong about humans. He said that he wanted to help. Zara pulled an energy pistol from a fallen security officer and checked its charge. She said that she was not letting Mira go anywhere alone. Not anymore. The team moved out through a maintenance hatch that Danny had used 100 times before. The tunnels were dark and narrow. Mira had to crouch to fit through some sections. Torvik barely squeezed his massive body through the passages. But they moved quickly and quietly while the sounds of battle echoed through the walls around them. Keelix proved her value within minutes. She detected a Hollow patrol approaching an intersection ahead and guided them through an alternate route. The machines passed without noticing them. They were fast and silent, their bodies made of black metal that absorbed light. Their eyes glowed with cold blue fire. The journey took an hour. They encountered 3 more patrols. Each time, Keelix found a way around them. Once, they had no choice but to wait in silence while a Hollow unit stood 3 meters away, scanning the corridor with sensors that could detect heartbeats and body heat. Mira held her breath. The device in her hand went dark, as if it knew they needed to hide. The machine moved on. They reached the communication array through a service entrance that had not been opened in years. Danny had to cut through the rusted lock with a maintenance laser. The array chamber was enormous, filled with equipment that broadcast signals across the entire galaxy. Emergency lights bathed everything in red. Holo units had already found the chamber. 12 of them stood guard around the central transmission console. Their weapons were raised. Their sensors swept the room. They had been waiting. Torvik did not hesitate. He charged into the room with a roar that shook the walls. His stone fist smashed into the first machine and sent it flying across the chamber. Energy blasts struck his body and left scorch marks on his skin, but he did not slow down. He was a warrior of the Gron. This was what he was born to do. Danny and Zara provided covering fire while Keelix guided Mira toward the console. The Arthani shouted directions through the chaos. Left, right, down. She predicted where the enemy fire would go before it was fired. Mira trusted her completely. A hollow unit appeared directly in front of Mira, its weapon aimed at her chest. She had no time to dodge. She had no time to think. She simply raised the device and pressed it against the machine's body. Light exploded from the device. The hollow unit froze in place. Its eyes flickered. Its limbs twitched. Then it collapsed into a pile of dead metal. Mira stared at what she had done. The device pulsed in her hand, brighter than ever before. It was showing her something. It was teaching her. The precursors had designed it to interface with hollow technology. It could rewrite their programming. It could turn their weapons against them. She reached the console and placed the device against the transmission array. The symbols on its surface blazed with light that filled the entire chamber. A signal broadcast across the station, across the fleet, across the void between stars. The remaining hollow units in the chamber stopped moving. Their eyes went dark. Their weapons fell silent. Throughout the station, the same thing was happening. Machines that had been killing moments ago now stood frozen like statues. But something else was happening too. Myra felt the device connecting to her. She felt energy flowing through her body. Her eyes began to glow with the same blue light as the precursor symbols. Her mind expanded beyond the walls of the chamber, beyond the station, beyond anything she had ever experienced. She was not just broadcasting a signal. She was becoming the signal. The precursors had not just designed humans to fight the hollow. They had designed humans to control them. And Myra was the first one to activate that ability in a billion years. Her friends watched in awe and terror as light surrounded her. She rose from the floor, suspended by energy that came from somewhere beyond space and time. Her voice echoed with harmonics that human vocal cords should not have been able to produce. She said one word. Stop. And across the void, the hollow fleet went silent. Instructor Velith's research wing was located in a section of the academy that most students never saw. Myra followed the directions on her navigation device through corridors that grew older and quieter with every turn. The walls here were made of a different material than the rest of the station. They were darker. They seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. She had the strange feeling that she was walking into something ancient. Velith was waiting for her in a chamber filled with artifacts. Objects from 100 worlds lined the shelves. Some glowed. Some hummed. Some seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could see. Velith stood at the center of the room, his crystalline body casting colored light across the floor. He did not waste time with pleasantries. He told Myra that he knew about the device in her bag. He had sensed it the moment she stepped off the shuttle. His species could feel certain energy signatures the way humans could feel heat or cold. The device she carried was emitting a frequency that he had not encountered in 300 years of study. It was precursor technology. It was older than any living civilization. It was not supposed to exist. Mira felt cold. She had been careful. She had told no one about the device except the officials who had sent her here. She asked Velith how he knew. He told her that the precursors left their mark on everything they created. Their technology sang with a voice that those who knew how to listen could hear. He had been listening his entire life. She took the device from her bag and held it out. The symbols on its surface pulsed with blue light. Velith studied it without touching it. He said that it was a fragment of something larger. A key, perhaps. Or a message. Or both. The precursors had been the first intelligent species in the galaxy. They had seeded life on countless worlds. They had built structures that still stood after 1 billion years. Then they vanished without explanation. Every species in the galaxy was a child of the precursors. But humans were different. Velith had studied the precursor archives for centuries. He had found references to their final creation. A species designed not for strength or speed or psionic ability. A species designed for adaptation. A species that could become anything because they had been given nothing. Humans were not an accident of evolution. Humans were the precursors' last experiment. Mira did not want to believe him. She said that humans had evolved on Earth through natural processes. She said that scientists had traced human ancestry back millions of years. Velith agreed that this was true. The precursors had not created humans from nothing. They had guided human evolution. They had made subtle changes over millions of years. They had shaped humanity into something that no other species could be. He asked her what she had seen when she first touched the device. She hesitated. Then she told him. She had found the device on a moon that humanity had claimed for mining rights. The moon was dead and airless, covered in dust that had not moved in 1 million years. Her team had been surveying for mineral deposits when her scanner detected something strange beneath the surface. She had dug alone, curious. She had found a chamber that should not have existed. Inside was the device, waiting on a pedestal like it had been left there for someone to find. When she touched it, she saw everything. She saw the galaxy as it had been when the precursors were alive. She saw them building worlds and seeding life and watching their children grow. She saw them discover something terrible in the darkness between galaxies. A machine intelligence that consumed everything it touched. The Hollow, they called it. The Empty Ones. The Eaters of Worlds. The precursors had fought the Hollow for 1,000 years. They had won, but barely. They had pushed the Hollow to the edge of existence and built barriers to keep them out. Then they had created one final safeguard. They had designed a species that could adapt to any threat. A species that could think in ways the machines could not predict. A species that could unite the galaxy when the Hollow returned. That species was humanity. And the device was a warning. The barriers were failing. The Hollow was coming back. Velith listened to her story without interruption. When she finished, he was silent for a long time. Then he said that she had confirmed what he had suspected for decades. The ancient texts spoke of the bridge, a species that would connect all others when the darkness returned. He had always believed that the bridge was a metaphor. Now he understood that it was literal. A sound came from the doorway. Myra turned and saw Zara standing there. Her face was pale. She had followed Myra to the research wing. She had heard everything. Zara did not speak at first. She stared at Myra like she was seeing her for the first time. Then she asked if it was true. Myra said that she did not know what was true anymore. She said that she had spent the last 6 months trying to understand what the device had shown her. She said that she had been sent to the academy because the officials on Earth believed she was important, but she did not feel important. She felt scared. Zara crossed the room and stood beside her. She said that being scared did not matter. What mattered was what you did when you were scared. She said that if the Hollow was real and humanity was supposed to stop them, then humans would stop them. Not because they were chosen or special or destined, because that was what humans did. They faced impossible situations and found ways to survive. Veleth watched the two humans with something that might have been admiration. He said that the Academy had been built on this location for a reason. The station orbited a point in space where precursor energy was strongest. Director Noma had founded the school specifically to gather the brightest minds from every species. He had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone knew. An alarm cut through the air. Red lights flashed along the walls. Veleth's crystalline body flickered with concern. He accessed a terminal, and his expression changed. Ships had dropped out of hyperspace near the station. Dozens of them. They were not responding to communication attempts. They were not registered in any database. Their hulls were black and featureless. Their energy signatures were unlike anything the scanners had seen before. But Myra recognized them. She had seen them in her visions. She had seen them burning worlds and harvesting civilizations and leaving nothing behind but silence. The Hollow had found her. The Hollow had come to the Academy. And the war that the precursors had fought 1 billion years ago was about to begin again. Myra gripped the device in her hand and felt it pulse with energy. The symbols blazed brighter than ever before. Whatever she was supposed to do, whatever purpose the precursors had designed her for, she was about to find out. The first week passed slowly. Mira attended classes and kept her head down. She sat in the back of lecture halls and took notes while professors explained concepts that humanity had not yet discovered on its own. She learned about faster-than-light physics from a being made entirely of light. She studied galactic history from a creature with 4 brains who could remember events from 10,000 years ago. She practiced basic telepathic shielding from an instructor who looked like a floating jellyfish. Even though humans had no telepathic ability to shield, the other students ignored her for the most part. A few whispered when she walked past. Some pointed. The confrontation with Torvik had spread through the Academy like a virus. Most students thought she was foolish for challenging Agron. Others thought she was brave. Nobody thought she would last the semester. Zara continued to watch her from a distance. Danny continued to be friendly. The other human students treated her with polite distance. They did not trust her yet. She had not earned their trust. She was not sure she ever would. The combat training simulations began in the second week. Commander Solara ran the program. She was a Veth, a serpentine species known for their speed and tactical minds. Her scales were dark green, and her eyes never blinked. She explained that every student at the Academy would face the same simulation. The scenario was simple. A space station had been captured by hostile forces. Hostages were being held in the central chamber. Students had to rescue the hostages without losing more than 20% of their team. Most students failed within the first 3 minutes. The simulation was designed to be overwhelming. Enemy forces outnumbered the rescue team 10-1. The station layout changed randomly. Communication systems failed at critical moments. Even students from warrior species struggled to make progress. Torvik lasted 4 minutes before his entire team was eliminated. He left the simulation chamber with his stone face twisted in anger. Myra watched the other students fail one by one. She studied their approaches. She noted their mistakes. When her turn came, she entered the chamber alone. Commander Solara asked if she understood that solo attempts were permitted but rarely successful. Myra said she understood. The simulation began. The station materialized around her in perfect detail. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. She could hear enemy forces moving through the corridors ahead. She had no weapons. The simulation provided a standard energy pistol, but she left it holstered. Weapons would not help her here. she moved through the station like a ghost. She avoided contact with enemy forces instead of engaging them. When she found a patrol, she created distractions. She threw objects to make noise in empty corridors. She triggered false alarms in sections she had already passed. The enemy forces began to chase shadows. While she slipped past them, the hostage chamber was guarded by 20 enemy soldiers. Direct assault was impossible. Myra studied the room through a ventilation grate and noticed something the simulation designers had not intended. The guards were programmed to respond to threats. They were programmed to chase intruders. But they were not programmed to question their own commanders. Myra found a communication terminal and spent 3 minutes learning its systems. Then she broadcast a false order using command codes she had observed from enemy communications. The order told half the guards to reinforce a non-existent breach on the far side of the station. They left immediately. She broadcast another order telling the remaining guards to prepare the hostages for transport. They began unlocking the restraints. She walked into the chamber while the guards were distracted. She wore a helmet she had taken from a fallen enemy. She moved with confidence. She acted like she belonged there. The guards glanced at her and returned to their work. She reached the hostages. She told them to follow her. They did not. She led them out of the station through maintenance tunnels that the enemy forces had never thought to guard. The simulation ended when the last hostage reached the extraction point. Total time, 7 minutes and 32 seconds. 0 casualties. Commander Solara stared at the results for a long time. She played back the recording 3 times. She called in 2 other instructors to verify that the simulation had not malfunctioned. They confirmed that everything had worked as designed. Mira had simply found solutions that nobody had considered before. Word spread through the academy within hours. Students crowded around display screens to watch the recording. They saw a small human girl walk through an army of enemies without firing a single shot. They saw her turn the simulation's own rules against itself. They saw her do something that no student had done in the 12 years since the program was created. Tarvik was the first to cry foul. He demanded an investigation. He claimed that Mira had cheated somehow. He said that no human could have accomplished what she did. Academy officials reviewed every piece of data. They found nothing wrong. Mira had simply been smarter than the simulation expected. An Arthani student named Kelix approached Mira after the investigation concluded. The Arthani were an insectoid species with compound eyes and minds built for pattern recognition. Kelix had watched the recording 17 times. She was fascinated. She asked Mira how she had known that the guards would follow false orders. She asked how Myra had predicted the enemy patrol routes. She asked what made human cognition so different from other species. Myra thought about the question before answering. She told Kelix that humans evolved on a planet that was trying to kill them. Earth had predators and diseases and natural disasters that should have wiped humanity out 1,000 times over. Humans survived not because they were strong or fast or had special abilities. They survived because they learned to think around problems instead of through them. They survived because they could adapt to anything. Kelix processed this information with visible interest. She said that most species evolved their strengths first and then developed intelligence to support those strengths. Humans had evolved intelligence as their only strength. It made them unpredictable. It made them dangerous in ways that other species did not expect. Danny found Mira in the cafeteria that evening. He sat across from her with a tray of food that looked barely edible. He said that she had made herself famous. She said that she had not meant to. He laughed and told her that it did not matter what she meant. The academy was watching her now. The instructors were watching. The other species were watching. She had proven that humans were not what everyone assumed. Myra said that she was just one person. Danny said that one person was all it took to change how people thought. He said that every human who came after her would be measured against what she had done today. It was a gift and a burden at the same time. That night, a message arrived at Myra's door. It was a formal summons from Instructor Velith. He wanted to meet with her privately in his research wing. The message said it was about her academic progress, but Mira knew better. Velith had looked at her bag on the first day. He had seen something. He knew something. She read the message 3 times before deleting it. Then she opened her bag and looked at the device that had brought her here. The symbols glowed brighter than before, pulsing with an urgency she could feel in her bones. Something was coming. Something was changing. And tomorrow, she would have to decide how much truth she was willing to share. She closed the bag and stared out the window at the stars. The galaxy was vast and old and full of secrets. She was beginning to understand that she was one of them. The shuttle docked at Nexus Academy with a soft hum, and Mira Cole stepped out into a world she had only seen in government briefings. The station stretched before her like a city floating in space. Towers of crystal and metal rose toward a dome that showed the stars beyond. Students of every shape and size walked the wide corridors, speaking in languages that her translator struggled to keep up with. Some had scales. Others had skin like polished stone. A few floated rather than walked. Myra kept her bag close to her chest and tried not to stare. She was 19 years old and very far from home. Earth was somewhere behind her, a small blue dot lost among billions of others. She had never planned to come here. 6 months ago, she had been a geology student digging through rocks on a dead moon. Then she found something that changed everything. Now she carried that something in her bag. And people she had never met had sent her to the most famous school in the galaxy. The welcome hall was filled with new students. But Mira was the only one who arrived alone. Every other species sent their candidates in groups, with advisors and family members and officials who smiled for the cameras. Humans had 12 students at the academy, and none of them had come to greet her. She did not blame them. Her transfer had been handled quietly. No announcements. No ceremony. Just a message that said she had been accepted and a ticket for the next shuttle. A tall figure made of living crystal approached her. His body caught the light and scattered it into rainbows across the floor. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. His name was Instructor Velith, and he taught advanced xenobiology. He welcomed her to the academy and handed her a small device that would guide her to her quarters. His eyes, if they could be called eyes, lingered on her bag for just a moment longer than necessary. Then he moved on to the next student. Mira found her room on the 17th level of the human residential block. It was small but clean, with a window that looked out at the stars. She set her bag on the bed and sat beside it. Her hands were shaking. She had been shaking since she left Earth, but she had gotten good at hiding it. The device in her bag hummed softly, as if it knew she was thinking about it. She did not open the bag. Not yet. A knock came at her door an hour later. The woman on the other side was human, with dark hair and sharp eyes. Her name was Zara Quinn, and she had been at the academy for 2 years. She did not smile when Mira opened the door. She looked at Mira the way a soldier looks at an unknown contact. Zara asked why Mira was here. She asked why the transfer had been kept secret from the other human students. She asked what Mira had done to earn a personal approval from the Galactic Union's Education Council. Myra had answers for none of these questions, or at least no answers she could share. She told Zara that she was just a student like everyone else. Zara did not believe her. She said that humans at the academy had to trust each other because nobody else would trust them. Then she left without saying goodbye. Mira understood. Humans were newcomers to galactic society. They had only discovered faster than light travel 80 years ago. Most species had been crossing the stars for thousands of years. To them, Humans were children. Weak children, at that. Humans had no natural weapons. No telepathy. No armor of venom or wings. They lived short lives and came from a planet that most species considered a death trap. The Academy accepted human students as a gesture of goodwill, but few expected them to succeed. The orientation ceremony took place the next morning in the Grand Hall. Thousands of students gathered beneath a ceiling that displayed the entire galaxy in real time. Mira stood with the other first-year students and listened to Director Noma speak about honor and duty and the future of civilization. Director Noma was ancient. Nobody knew what species he belonged to or how old he was. His body was wrapped in robes that hid everything except his face, which looked like it had been carved from old wood. After the ceremony, students gathered in groups to introduce themselves. Mira stayed at the edge of the crowd, watching. A massive figure pushed through the other students and stopped in front of her. His skin looked like gray stone, and his eyes burned like coals. His name was Torvik, and he was a Gron. The Gron were one of the oldest warrior species in the galaxy. They had conquered star systems before humans learned to make fire. Torvik looked down at Mira and laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. He asked if she was lost. He asked if the Academy had started accepting pets. The students around them went quiet. Some of them smiled. Others looked away. Myra looked up at Torvik without expression. She was barely half his height. His arm was thicker than her entire body. She asked him if he had a question or if he just wanted attention. The silence grew deeper. Torvik stopped laughing. He told her that humans did not belong here. He told her that her species was an accident of evolution, a mistake that the galaxy would forget in a few thousand years. Mira asked him if he practiced that speech in the mirror. Then she walked away. Torvik did not follow her. Nobody followed her. She walked through the corridors until she found a quiet observation deck where she could be alone. Her heart was pounding, but her face showed nothing. She had learned to hide her fear a long time ago. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. A young man was already on the observation deck when she arrived. He was human, with an easy smile and kind eyes. His name was Danny Park, and he was in his second year at the Academy. He had watched the confrontation with Torvik from across the hall. He told Myra that she had made an enemy. She told him that she had not started it. He laughed and said that was exactly what an enemy would say. Danny was different from Zara. He did not ask questions about her past or her transfer. He talked about the Academy, about the classes and the teachers and the best places to find food that humans could actually eat. He talked about the other human students and how they looked out for each other. He said that being human at Nexus Academy was hard, but it was also an opportunity that most people on Earth would never get. Mira thanked him for being kind. Danny shrugged and said that kindness was free. Then he left her alone with the stars. That night, Mira sat in her room with the door locked and the lights dim. She opened her bag and took out the device she had carried from Earth. It was small enough to fit in her palm, made of a metal that did not exist in any database. Symbols covered its surface, glowing with a soft blue light. She had found it buried beneath 1,000,000 years of dust on a moon that nobody cared about. When she touched it for the first time, it had shown her things. Things about the galaxy. Things about humanity. Things that she was not sure she wanted to know. The device hummed in her hand, and the symbols pulsed like a heartbeat. Somewhere out in the darkness between stars, something was waiting. Something old. Something hungry. And somehow, for reasons she did not understand, Mira Cole was connected to it all. She put the device away and lay down on her bed. Sleep did not come easily. When it finally did, she dreamed of fire and metal and a voice that spoke in a language older than the stars.